So, the Utah Jazz are looking good so far to start the season. They currently have a 10-4 record. They are ninth in offense and fourth in defense. So, top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. That bodes really well for the Jazz. And, on the court, you can see that they're playing really well. They have beaten some good teams. They had an impressive win against the Pelicans. They've beaten teams like the Clippers and the Bucks. So a good start to the season so far for the Jazz. I didn't do a Jazz season preview, so I thought that I'd talk about them a bit, as I think they're 10-4, one of the best teams in the league right now, and it's going a bit under the radar and underappreciated. So let's talk about the Jazz. They currently have a starting lineup of Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Royce O'Neal, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Rudy Gobert. They have had the benefit of all five of those guys playing all 14 games, so that's not something that other teams have had, but still, it's not like they're playing bad teams, because there's no bad teams in the West. So they've had a tough schedule and they have a good record. So Mike Conley has been playing very, very well so far for the Jazz. He had a disappointing first season in Utah, but that was a bit to be expected as he was was just traded from Memphis, and he played in Memphis his whole career, so it's understandable that it takes some adjustment time. And he's really hitting his stride right now. He's currently averaging 16 points, which is good for him. He's never been a huge scorer, and there's other scorers on this Jazz team. 6 assists, which is also decent, a bit below what he has averaged before, but it is understandable because they have Donovan Mitchell, who also does a share of the playmaking duties. And then, maybe most impressively, he's currently shooting 41% from 3 on a decent amount of attempts a game, and that's very impressive. It also augments his off-ball value, which is important for this Jazz team, as they have players who play on-ball, like Donovan Mitchell. Speaking of Donovan Mitchell, he is also playing decently. He is currently averaging 23.5 points a game, 5 assists, and his efficiency is decent. He is shooting well from 3, and he is willing to shoot from 3 from deep, contested, off the dribble, and that's good because he should keep taking those because he's good at those. So Mitchell playing well, shooting threes. Royce O'Neal, he's sort of the guy who ties the starting lineup together, the glue guy who doesn't score much. He's currently averaging 7 points and 7 boards. He's a really solid role player, and most impressively, he is scorching the nets from downtown. 46% from 3 on 4 attempts a game. That's really impressive, and that's what the Jazz need from him. And then they have Bogdanovic, who has been a bit disappointing this season. He's averaging only 13 points a game, but it does make sense as he is coming back from an injury, so it's understandable. And, instead of reading too much into his poor start to the season, because I think he will bounce back because he is a very good player, I think it's almost a positive that they still have the good record of 10-4 without Bogdanovic playing well. So when he does play well, maybe they can reach another gear and play even better. And then Rudy Gobert, just doing Rudy Gobert things, currently averaging 12 points and 13.5 boards. On defense, we know how good a rim protector he is and what a benefit that is to the rest of their team. Because if you're a Jazz perimeter defender, you can afford to get beat on the perimeter because you know that Gobert is in the paint to clean it all up. Just playing great defense as usual. A really good rebounder, and then on offense, it's just the standard things: setting screens, rolling hard to the rim, and getting putbacks and lobs. And if you can continue to do that, then that would be really good for the Jazz. And then off the bench, they have 3 of the best bench players in the league, in Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles, and Favors. And they also have Georges Niang coming off the bench. To talk a bit about Jordan Clarkson, he's currently averaging 17.5 points a game, so he's their second leading scorer. and that's really impressive. He's been doubted quite a bit in his career, but I think he's found his place in Utah as a bench player, someone who comes off the bench and provides a spark. But here's what I like about what the Utah Jazz are doing with their bench and with Clarkson. They rarely have a full bench unit, and they always have some of the starters, whether it be Conley or Gobert or Mitchell, overlapping with the bench. And this allows Jordan Clarkson to play within the offense. Some teams, when they have a six-man spark plug type, they just put the full bench unit with him as the primary ball handler and just say isolation, pick and roll. We've seen it with Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford. It's happened quite a bit, but what the Jazz do is they have some of the starters in with Clarkson, and instead of having him isolate or play pick and roll for the whole whatever minutes when some of the starters sit, they have him play within the offense. They have him coming off screens, passing, and getting easier shots that way to boost his efficiency and help his scoring. And I really like that the Jazz are doing that. I think they should keep doing that. They also have Joe Ingles, who is one of the best bench players in the league. I really like what he gives them. He's missed a few games, but when he has played, he's just a great player, can score a little bit, is a very good playmaker, and is a great shooter. So if he can keep that up, the Jazz will be happy. And then they have Derek Favors, currently averaging only 6 points and 6 rebounds, but that is understandable as he is, just playing when Rudy Gobert is sitting, so not many minutes a game. But he allows them to stay afloat and keep playing well when Rudy Gobert is sitting, because that's a problem for some teams when one of their best players sit. They just aren't very good, but the Jazz don't have that problem with Favors. So they've been good so far. A few things I've noticed, the Mitchell threes, Mitchell, Conley, and O'Neal all shooting well from three, but also the Conley-Gobert pick and roll. That has been very effective. Just with Conley's ability to shoot and play make, and Gobert being a great screener and roller, it's been a really good play for them, and they should keep that up too. So that's sort of the Jazz so far this season. Very good, 10-4. To talk about, are they contender, and how far can this team go in the playoffs? So I think they can definitely be the third seed in the West behind the two LA teams. And then last year, of course, they looked good in the first round for the first 4 games. They got up 3-1 on the Nuggets, but of course they blew that lead. But I definitely think they can get out of the first round. I mean, it's not going to be easy. If they get the third seed, they'll be facing a good team like Denver or Portland or Dallas or the Warriors or the Suns. There's just so many good teams in the West, and the West is so deep. But if they do get out of the first round, then they have a puncher's chance in the second round, because the closer you get to the championship, the more weird things that can happen, that can go your way, that can help you win it all. If you're an unlikely team like the Jazz, like let's say Conley just keeps scorching the nets from 3, and Mitchell just explodes like he did in last year's playoffs, and no one can score in the paint against Gobert, or the other team gets a few injuries, or they have a cold shooting night. Like, you just never know in the NBA, and that's something that can go to Utah's advantage if they are the underdog in a series. But it is very unlikely that happens, and I don't really think anyone believes that the Jazz are a contender, and to be honest, I don't really believe it either. They've looked good to start the season, but it's so hard in the NBA when you don't have one of those top 8, top 10, whatever players to win it all, let alone make the finals. So it's just a tough uphill battle for the Utah Jazz, especially since there's not a clear way to improve their team. They have obviously the Conley contract and the Gobert contract. Mitchell was just given a max extension. I guess the way would be if Donovan Mitchell just takes a leap and becomes one of the best players in the NBA, like a top 10 player. But overall, the Jazz this season to start the season, they've played very well. They have the 10-4 record, and they're looking good. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys.